I don't know, YouTube, it acts weird sometimes when it comes to Streamlabs. All right, we should be on YouTube. We are on the radio, so
On the radio. Oh,
yep.
there we are. Okay.
Good.
Okay.
All right.
It is 2:03. Sorry. Oh, there we are. Okay. It is 2:03. It is time for Model Citizen. I'm your host, George Dayer. I am flanked by my two wonderful hosts, the angriest of IT nerds, Gilbert, and Printmaster James. We have a special guest today. His name is Ray Vaughn, and every time I try to look him up on Google, it says Stevie Ray Vaughan, but I don't think that he's part of the Stevie Ray Vaughan thing. So, welcome to Model Citizen, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just have to get through the business end of the program, and then we will get to you, sir. Business end is our two sponsors. One sponsor is Tenna Controls. Ralph Tenaglia is the owner and operator of Tenna Controls, bringing models to light. They are the manufacturer and distributor of lighting boards and lighting kits for all different types of models. And also our other sponsor is AAA Hobbies in Magnolia, New Jersey. AAA Hobbies has a brick and mortar store in Magnolia, New Jersey. If you cannot get to their store in New Jersey, they do have a website, megahobby.com. So that is the business end of the program. You are listening to Model Citizen on GCPR, Ghost Claw Productions Radio, and streaming exclusively on our YouTube channel, GCPR, on YouTube, on Twitch, TikTok, and all the other platforms that we frequent. We do have a special guest today. His name is Ray Vaughn, star of Stage and Screen. Oh, sorry. And he is a premier model maker. I believe that I found your models, or I actually found your page through Mark Myers. Mark Myers is a friend of ours. We've had him on the show before, and Mark
Yes,
had actually recommended me to you, and so I wanted to have you on. I love your models. I'm like going, I want that one, and I want that one, and I want that one, and I want that one. I can't grab all these models. So, welcome, and the first question I have for you is, who is Ray Vaughn and how did you get here?
Oh man, I've been an artist since I was a kid. My dad got me in a model building probably when I was like 5 or 6, and he served at Moody Air Force Base, Valdosta, Georgia, and I was on base housing. So
Did you say Moody? Moody Air Force Base?
Moody Air Force
Oh
Base?
yeah, I know that place. I installed some systems there. I lived in Jacksonville. I was born in Jacksonville, so
Awesome.
yeah, I used to do some work there. So yeah, I know Moody. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, so you're Georgian.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right.
originally I was born in Daytona though. I was born in Daytona Beach.
Oh, okay. Okay, so
Yeah.
we're both native Floridians. Though I'm not in Florida anymore, and I'm glad.
Yeah, but my dad got me into model building at a very young age. I started drawing. I got into drawing first, and I think the drawing kind of helped me with lines and putting things together a little bit better. And because there was things I was painting, I didn't have stencils or I have all the tools we have today. And I was at a young age, I was kind of figuring out, I was mapping out where I wanted my details to go. And my dad got me into military jets. It was military stuff, a lot of military vehicles, tanks. His brother was in the Army, so they were all military guys. They did military tanks. They had a thing for Star Trek. Then came Star Wars, and I kind of fell into that same little niche. But I was a vehicle person at a young age, so my whole thing was vehicles. When I grew up, I grew up with Knight Rider. I grew up with Magnum PI. I grew up with Airwolf, and a lot of shows from the '80s. I mean, they had a lot of, it was a vehicle involved, and it was always that vehicle something to get you from point A to point B, and it was something advanced, and it looked really cool. And Star Wars played in that to that too. The Millennium Falcon was like the coolest hot rod. It was like the coolest space hot rod to have. And back then in the 80s, my dad couldn't afford a lot of the toys that were coming out. The stuff were coming out from Kenner and all these other ones. And I would make my Millennium Falcon. I would draw a top, draw a bottom, and draw a little, like a little strip. And I'll put tabs on it. And I'll put glue. And I would glue all the pieces together. Glue a little radar dish off to the side. It had a tab on it. And I'll play with it in the backyard. And my imagination filled in the blanks. And that's how it was. I mean, when I was a kid, I did stuff like that. And so if I couldn't get the model, I couldn't get the toy, I was somewhere making it. Yeah. But just like I like to build stuff. I mean, I just from childhood, it was always about making things.
Yeah, I started with drawing. My mom used to go to New York a lot. She was a fashion designer in New York
Oh,
in the 40s, and she used to always bring home books for me, to draw. And then I got this one book at the mall. It was How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. And after that, I was like, I could draw Spider-Man, I could draw all these things. And I was like, but it wasn't really, I started getting into clay, and I was like, okay, I have clay, but the clay is gonna like eventually, like melt, and I'm gonna get into like this three-dimensional thing, and I was like, I just, I couldn't keep my models from melting. I was like, I had these things, and I was like, what the hell am I gonna do? And then all of a sudden, my uncle, who was a mold engineer for Mattel, he brought me to the plant one time to go see one of the major Masons made, and I was like, I can mold stuff. I was like, this is cool. I was like, but back in the 70s, there wasn't all these things for, like we have to, And then once in like the 90s, when I first made, like when I made my first mold, I was like, I can mold stuff. I can actually have these things. I had like 250 things all over the place. I'm like, I have too much stuff. I have to get rid of stuff. So,
I
mean,
as you started to get into, at least their materials were readily, fairly readily available at that point.
Yeah, I mean
back in the 70s, man, that was a tough. You couldn't find any of this stuff.
As I said from the one show, my molding medium, I think it was 5-minute epoxy, which was like my molding medium. That was like my poly resin at the time. But it was just, I was, I got into candle molds and stuff like that, and I was doing stuff like that. But it was just, wasn't there. It just wasn't there yet. I was like, I wanted, like when I got the first Millennium Falcon model, like from NPC. It had 2 grain of wheat bulbs for the engines, and I was like. No, it needs to be like really, really bright in the back.
You need fluorescent in there.
So I had this. My father used to go on all these golf tournaments. He was like a chief of police, and he used to do all the IACP conventions. And he found this thing. It was it was like a handheld flashlight. It had a 6-volt fluorescent tube. And I took the guts out of that, and I put it into the Millennium Falcon. I had a 6-volt like fluorescent tube, and I was like, "Yeah, this is how the Falcon's engine should be." I mean, we have things today like.
And then it caught fire.
No, actually, it didn't. It did kind of heat up. I did have to put but it was just trying to figure out stuff like that is. Like back in the day, it was just grain of wheat bulbs,
Yeah.
I totally understood your story. Like where, you didn't have the money, or there just wasn't, the thing just wasn't available, like back in those days. And so you had to make these things. And I can remember, remember when Tic Tac boxes first, Tic Tac started coming out like 71 or 72. And AMT hadn't quite come out with the Star Trek hand phasers and the communicators and all that stuff. So I remember like, oh, that Tic Tac box, that's great. And there's a little bit of board on there. You made yourself a communicator and everything else. So I definitely I know what you're talking about there with Millennium Falcon. So did you make that out of cardboard? I mean, was that what was the medium that you used when you made that stuff mostly?
Was it Ray?
Oh, that's me?
Yeah. I'm sorry, Ray.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. When I was a kid, I was doing it out of like drawing paper.
Oh, drawing paper, really?
Oh,
Yeah, I got into cardboard like in my teenage years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then I went to cardboard. Yeah.
Yeah, well, actually, it's amazing what you can do. I mean, some of the models I've seen people do with model paper kits these days really actually kind of rivals, or over the years, just some of the stuff that they make with paper is just amazing. It's like saw a guy did like the Nautilus, and actually somebody did like the robots from Silent Running. That I was like, wow, that's it's paper, but when you have that imagination and that will and determination, man, you can make anything out of almost anything, really, when you think about it. So it's really important.
Yeah, I was very much taken by you build a lot of RC planes, and I saw that A6 Intruder that you built.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the detail on the wing. I was like going, that looks exactly like how does he get that detail? There's a guy in the Lehigh Valley Scale Modelers Club. His name is Dave, and he does everything by hand. He doesn't use an airbrush. I mean, I would assume you use an airbrush, but
I do both, and I have to go between everything, and I finally had to just say, you can't put everything on one type of, one tool, one medium, one idea. Like you have to combine a lot of different techniques and ideas.
Yeah.
And it helps me a lot because I was trying to do things one way when I got in my 20s. I started doing a lot of dry brushing.
Yeah.
And because I did canvas work. I was going to art school outside of high school, and I was doing a lot of canvas work with paints and stuff like that. So I got the feel of, going across the canvas and blending colors with brushes. And I just applied that to the models, and I was like, I can do this. If it's on a flat surface, I can get those colors to do what I want them to do.
Yeah.
And I've gotten used to the pressure of the brushes, and I just go off on it. And I ducked and dodged airbrush when I was in my early 20s, and it was like, you need to just do it. I mean, everybody else is doing it, but at the time, brushes worked for me. Paint brushes work.
Yeah.
So now it's like I combine all of it. So a lot of the weathered, oxidized, faded look, but a lot of times I would go with an airbrush, and a lot of my details I'll be hitting at it with a lot of little brushes. But it's just you have to. It's just that just combining your ideas and techniques, and there's nothing wrong with looking at other people's work too, but you still gotta combine a lot of different ideas that works for you, and because there's some things that it just doesn't work for me, and I see other people doing it, and I'm like, do I need to be doing that? And it's like, no. I mean, it's just, you can try it, but everything I do is kind of like it's like trial and error. You it's like experimenting, and how far you want to go with that experiment.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's part of the adventure, right? Too. I mean,
because I mean, I can spend $100-$200 on materials and stuff trying to build something out of scratch, and it don't work out that well. And it's like, gosh, I blew all this money, so I got all these parts for kit bashing, and maybe I'll put that aside for another project.
Yeah.
But it's like, you just have to kind of like, oh, that didn't work out too well. But I mean,
lesson learned.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
But in that sense, you're still ahead of the game because you know what doesn't work for you. So you hit instead of
Yeah, I always try to look at stuff like that, like how who was it, Benjamin Franklin described how it was creating the light bulb. It's saying it took him 10,000 tries in order to get it right.
Right.
And somebody asked him, said, did he feel like a failure or something like that throughout the times? And he's like, no. He said, I found out 9,999 ways to do it wrong. So I don't consider it a failure. I consider it a step towards success. So
exactly.
Right.
And you have to view it that way.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to have any success in a hobby that gives you satisfaction, you got to look at that way.
Yeah.
You know,
You can't look at it as, oh, this is
no,
a
I screwed that
failure.
up. Yeah, I
So
screwed
just-
that up.
I mean, yeah, you can say, yeah, I screwed that up, and I know
Yeah.
don't do that ever again.
Oh wait, yeah. I always get bothered with people when you know, especially sometimes you go to like to these shows like Wonderfest, and you get these people that say, "Oh, I could never make something like that. I could never do that." I said, you know, I hate that sort of like defeatist attitude because I think anybody can do anything. I mean, if I really wanted to play piano or whatever, you know, I could learn to play piano, but you got to have that, you know, like I said, you got to have that determination. And,
You got to
Yeah.
want. You really got to want
exactly,
to do it.
exactly. Yeah. So I love hearing these stories. People, you know, of their own volition, just if they don't have something, they're going to make something that they want, you know, and get there. So fantastic.
Yeah, I've been
Yeah.
was it I've been trying to do, you know, the cardboard and the resin thing. And I'm like, I want to build a big model. I just want to build a big model, like a big ass model. And I was like,
Mhm.
I don't want to buy it. I want to make it from scratch.
Exactly.
And I was
Right.
like, I have a lot of cardboard. I have enough cardboard to cover my house 27 times. That's how much cardboard I have in the basement. I'm like, I have a
In case
lot
I
of
need
resin.
cardboard,
So
I'm coming
basically
to your
saying is
house.
I got cardboard.
So basically
I was
saying
like,
is that
okay.
you have enough cardboard to where you can make another house.
Yes, I can make another house. Yeah, I can make I'm, you know, I can make like 3 shells over our house, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to make something really big. So I was in you know, in the break that we're gonna have, you know, for Model Citizen for 3 months,
Mhm.
I'm actually considering building the Interdictor, which is from Shadows of the Empire. It's a Star Destroyer, but it has 4 gravity well generators in it, so it actually keeps. So when an interdictor shows up in Empire at War, there's a game, like a Star Wars game called Empire at War. When you're, you know, playing the space battles, and you create the interdictor from the Empire, when it warps in, other ships cannot warp out. It actually disrupts their hyperspace, you know, sensitivity, and they can't warp out. You know, so there's like these 4 gravity well generators. So it's basically a Star Destroyer with these 4 globes, 2 on each side of the Star Destroyer. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'm going to be a glutton for punishment, and I'm going to hopefully, you know, try to build this thing. Because when I watch, you know, like, you know, when I see Ray stuff, and I see it on Instagram a lot, I see it on, you know, on Facebook, I never knew, you know, like he built is it 5? And it's either 5 foot or a 6 foot.
6 foot.
Yeah, all right, 6 foot model of the Rebel transport from Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, really?
I never knew that the cockpit was on the top. I never had any schematics for that. You know, the cockpit is actually on the top in the back of the ship. And you actually light that up, and I was like, oh, that's where it is. It's like, you would think it would be somewhere in the front of the ship or inside the ship someplace. And I was like, it's in the back toward where the engines are, you know, because like you lit it up, and I was like, oh, I could see the guys inside, you know, I could see the cockpit, I see the guys inside, see all the controls and everything. And I was like, oh, that's where it is. You know, so, you know, but
Oh,
yeah,
I'm looking at this thing now. That's amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Is that was that a kit, or was that a like a 3D thing that you designed and built? Or
I had to engineer that. I wished it was a fiberglass resin kit. It'd probably be really heavy, but that's a foam board, a thick mat board. It has plastic. It has metal. It has there's wood
Okay.
parts in it. I mean, it has and it's kit bashed. There's plastic sprues. There's a lot of parts I collected over the years from other model kits.
wow,
No
beautiful.
tanks. I don't think it was any tanks. No tank parts. But I
Yeah.
wanted to do that the way it was done. I wanted to have that look of the 70s, the way it was, you know, it's like it was something that could have been
Yeah.
made at that time, you know.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember trying to make a model of that using the external tank of the space shuttle.
Mm.
and I was trying to do that because if you look at the Star Wars ships and their plating, it's very jagged, but it's very like I don't know how to describe it. Like they took like a nibbler and they nibbled out the pieces of the plastic and glued it on to give it that texture, to give it like there was a there's a book of Star Wars models, and one of the excerpts was when ships were created with wedding cake flair, like the Tantive 4, like Princess Leia's ship, and then the Rebel ships are dirty. They're they look like they've been dropped, kicked around a football field.
Yeah,
there's like parts coming off. There's stuff that's welded on, and then like the Imperial ships are nice and clean. They're nice and like a cleaner design.
Right, sharp, jagged edges.
Yeah. So
they can afford maintenance.
Yeah,
right.
They can afford maintenance. The one thing I saw from Andor was, if you watch Andor season 2, Director Krennic is on board Star Destroyer and he's looking at the Death Star, and the Death Star laser component is not there yet. You see it in Rogue One actually going into the Death Star, and then there is a Star Destroyer that is to scale with it. And I was like, I wonder if I could just build the Death Star component, because I'm sure that they built it someplace because they had to mine the crystals from Jeddah and take those crystals and put it into the thing. If you read Shadows of the Empire, like the Timothy Zahn books, they kind of mention how big the crystals are. They're like the size of a man. So they're like 6 feet, maybe 7 feet long. They weigh a couple of tons, and that's each crystal. And then those crystals were put into an array, kind of like the dilithium crystals on the Enterprise, where you take energy and you put it through kind of like a spark plug, like, to focus that energy. So
right.
Yeah. So that's usually the thing. Like, so what type of music do you listen to when you're doing Star Wars? Do you listen to Star Wars music? Do you listen to the soundtrack when you're doing, just to get you into the spirit of the model, or do you just listen to?
I do that sometimes. A lot of times I play the DVDs. I have like some I have a DVD collection, and I'll let the movies play as I'm drawing or building, and I'll be on the floor on my hands and knees drawing and having the layout for length and width of parts and stuff, and I'll just let the movies play, and I'll be right there in the living room, just because it takes up so much space. You just have to do everything in the living room.
Oh,
work on the kitchen floor, building stuff, and you got to have a lot of clamps and everything, kind of holding stuff together. And I got this part over here in the kitchen. I got this part over here in the living room.
Yeah, I'm looking at your pictures on the Facebook, and I was like, yeah, I could see where you're putting stuff in the living room and the yeah. Are you married? I
was. It's a recent divorce.
Yeah.
So
sorry.
It's been a couple of years. Yeah. So she had 2 daughters, and I was pretty much taking them in like they were my own. And so there was some things didn't work out right, and we had to kind of part and go ways, and so it kind of
Sorry, I didn't mean
oh no, and
you had memories or anything. So
because you can't. It was 3 years, but you can't like forget it. Even when I'm working on my models and stuff, every now and then I think about them. It's
yeah, sure, of course.
Yeah. They used to like to watch me build stuff, though.
Yeah,
they used to like to watch me build.
That's good. Well, see, you're inspiring them there too. I'm sure.
It was a Rebel transport. That was the clincher. You're not putting that in the, like in the kitchen. Well, it's my kitchen. Well, yeah.
Well,
whole-
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I was just amazed because I know you did I know you did Kronos 1, the Katinga, the Klingon Katinga.
I did several of those. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A guy just sent me one. I'm just finishing up. I got to build a box for it to ship it out, and I'm using a really thick foam board for the walls of the box, and have the top and the bottom half will pretty much be like a slightly thinner. But I didn't want a regular box for it, and I'm gonna have like some little split sections, walls going in between, and I have to do cutouts so the model can fit down in it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna have to fill it. I have to fill it and pack it in real good.
Yeah. Got to
Because,
reinforce those corners too, right?
Yeah, because FedEx and UPS they play football with these things, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. So yeah, it's FSU when they get in, when they take control of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in other words, their knuckles scrape on the ground. Yes, I understand.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, I did. I told these guys when I worked for the hobby shop, I did the Enterprise D model about 17 times, for people. And then after that, I was like, you know what? I'm done. Is there with it? I mean,
you had the opaque one, the solid plastic, not the clear.
I had the 1/537 scale Enterprise D AMT Ertl, the eggshell blue plastic.
Oh,
That was
okay.
the one that was the only one they had at the time.
Right.
There was
Mhm.
another one made that Steve Neal, when I worked for Steve Neal, I'm in California. He had a clear one. He had one actually made out of clear plastic. That's the best one to have because
Right.
you could just mask everything and paint it,
Right.
and then take the masks off. Yeah, mine I had to drill out all those little windows
That's me.
and put in
Mhm.
and I was like,
Oh
it's
man.
like I did it, I did it 17 times, and after the 17th time, they're like going, "Oh, I want this." No,
It's like
I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah,
I'm
'cause
retired from that.
That show came out in '87, and I know it's like around '88, '89 that kit came out. But my dad had that kit, and I tore his apart. He gave it to me, and I was gonna put lights in it, and I didn't think like, dude, you got to drill out all these windows. And I was like, well, some of them gonna be black. Some of these windows just gonna be blacked out.
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
some of these people are not gonna be in some of these rooms. I'm gonna black out.
Yeah. All the time.
Right.
Yeah, it was just, because a lot of people said, "Oh, well, what are you going to use for windows?" And the one guy said, you can use like a clear styrene, and then I found this stuff called canopy glue. So canopy glue, I started putting, actually started dripping Elmer's glue, into those window, ports and
That works.
Mhm.
lighting it that way. And they said, well, what would you use as like a lighting medium? And I was like, I mean, all I had at the time, the brightest bulb I ever had was, the Maglite bulb from, so I used to use Maglite bulbs for, the interior of the primary hull and then the interior of the secondary hull. And then they said, well, what are you going to use for the engines? And, there was never anything like we have today, like, LEDs. They had red and they had green. They had no blue.
Oh
It's
man.
like red.
wow.
and
Are you
green.
talking about the old LEDs or the ones you could barely see even when you had
Well, yeah, back in the 80s, we had, because I used to go to this place called the Electronics Barn in Bloomfield.
Yeah.
And they had, I could get 1,000, I can get 1,000 red LEDs for 99 cents. It was like a big surplus store. So I got 1,000. I got a bag of 1,000 red and a bag of 1,000 green, and that was it. It was like red or green. I could do the front, of like the Bassard collectors, but I couldn't do the, thing.
Oh,
And there
man.
was,
Oh,
yeah, and there was,
right.
and there was no blue. and I was like, how the hell am I going to do blue? So I had to get
Oh.
grain of wheat bulbs, put them together. There were no LED strips at the time. It was all grain of wheat bulbs, and I had to do
Those
that.
things put out some heat. After you get enough of them in there.
What?
Those grain of wheat bulbs used to they could put out. They put
Oh
out
yeah,
heat.
they put a lot of heat. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and people would just say, it burned out after a certain time. And I was like, well, dude, I'm sorry. It's it's just like the technology. The technology is not there yet.
Yeah. Yeah, those things. Grain of wheat. I mean, they're good for some. But I get. Well, what about? Did you ever use like the? Was it the fiber optics? So those were.
I used fiber optics. When I got into fiber optics, they were glass fibers.
Right.
And if you were putting, because I put glass fibers in the original Enterprise model that I had, the AMT model, and they were, they were terrific. But when they break off, it's like bamboo shoots underneath your fingernails. The thing would break off. And it'd be underneath your fingernail. And you go, and you're like, and you have all these band-aids on your fingers, and you go, oh, okay, I did it. And then they went over to the the softer plastic ones.
Yeah.
And it was just because I used to get my optical fibers from Edmund Scientific, at the time. Edmund Scientific did optical fibers.
Yeah.
And it was just, like, thank God the technology has just gotten to a point where it's simple now.
Yeah.
So like as an older person when you're younger, because I'm 62, I just retired, and I'm like, I just want to build a big model. And people are going, why are you building big models? Because I can't see. I gotta, I gotta get down there and get into the smaller model. No, I want to build a big model. Build a big model, and so. But do you enjoy to build bigger models or smaller models, or it's just
me or
yeah.
You're the guest.
I like the I think I like the big stuff better because I just I admire all the stuff that Industrial Light and Magic did, and it's like I want to do stuff like that. And I mean now CG has kind of taken over.
Yep.
And if the CG is not done right, I just don't believe it. My eyes don't believe that it's a physical model, a physical object.
Right.
And so I like I like that larger than life feel when I finish it, And I like that the Rebel Transport. I want to do a 1/48 scale diorama, and so I'm thinking like, well, do I need to do the Hoth type of thing, or it'll be huge? But I mean, then it's like you have to break it down and be able to transport it to Wonderfest or to a show or something. And
yeah.
And
are you gonna be at Wonderfest? You gonna be at Wonderfest next week?
I'll try. You see this? What I'm in?
Yeah.
This is another model kit. This 1999 Corvette. It's been broke for about a couple of months.
Yeah.
So after Florida, we got a lot of snow.
Yeah.
The electrical issues has gotten a little worse in here, and so I took a lot of stuff apart, and I checked all my fuses, and there's nothing wrong with my BCM, the computer, and it's underneath the dash under here. Yeah. And I only found one bad fuse, and that was just for the cigarette lighter. I don't smoke. So it's like, what's the problem? So I got a guy helping me. He's in Melbourne, Florida, and he's been walking me through stuff. And like, gosh, I wish he was here, because he's the only one I trust right now with Corvette stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like weird. It's a little weird electrical stuff going on. But I'm just get the part to replace my my coolant reservoir because it's been leaking bad. And I got a headlight switch, and I got this little cable that's going to the transmission. Well, it's not the transmission cable, but it's another cable that's going to the key solenoid, and it's having little weird stuff going on. So you can't put the shifter in park. You have to start and stop the car in neutral.
Oh,
and so it was driving. It made it up the driveway. So it's a this is a 1/1 scale model kit. I got another big model kit. I mean, it's not sci-fi, but it's another kit, with bolts and screws. So
That's
yeah.
true. That's true. Well, if you make it a Wonderfest, I'll be there. So
Awesome. Okay.
I hope that.
Okay.
And there's definitely there's a guy. You'd get you got to meet Mike Scott, because you two are like would get on great, because he's a car
Oh.
guy. And
Cool.
yeah, I don't know if you've seen his stuff, but yeah. So I've got a lot of people to introduce you to, if you know, but maybe you know some of them already. I don't know, but I'll definitely be on the lookout for you.
Yeah, because I graduated in '99 from Godby High School, and when I went to the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale, I was going for industrial design, and I went there, and that's when I first started watching this movie. A guy at the dorm got me watching the movie Gone in 60 Seconds, and I was like, I like cars and
Which
stuff.
one, the
but
original one or the old or the new one?
There was a new one, and it was
Oh
like
yeah.
when I saw the previews, I like, what is that? I don't know what it is, and I asked my dad, like, what is this? And it's funny because when I was in Fort Lauderdale, a guy showed me that, and I was like, oh, I wish I had went to the theaters to see that. And
Yeah.
I fell in love with the whole Eleanor thing, and I was reading books on the differences between the Shelby Mustang and the regular Ford Mustang, and I was going back and forth, and the custom parts they made to play that role of Eleanor.
Mm-hmm.
And I was
Mhm.
researching all that stuff, and my whole thing for muscle cars and hot rods kind of took off in my 20s.
Yeah.
And I was going to car shows all the time, and it was just like that.
Man.
Just kind of launched it.
You got to meet Mike Scott, man. We got to hook you two up. So yeah. Yeah, he's got a Charger, I think, like from like the '70s that he keeps. Sometimes he drives it down the show, but you two, I'm sure you're like I'm sure you're related somehow.
Oh man, yeah, but yeah. So this is probably the fastest car I ever owned. I mean, as stock, it comes with 345 horsepower. And it's I haven't modified much of anything. I've done the intake where it can run a little bit cooler, but I enjoy it, and I don't want to let it go. And that's the thing about when you're building models and you're building stuff.
Yeah.
When you get to like selling stuff and you have to kind of I had a problem in my teens and my early 20s. I didn't want to let stuff go, and I wanted to have this big collection. When I got into my late 30s, and I started letting stuff go, and a guy in Melbourne, he saw one of my battle cruisers on eBay, and I had it up for $1,000, and I didn't think nothing of it, and I was like, whatever. I had it on Facebook Marketplace. I was showing it off on Facebook, and this guy, Mr. Ron, he bought it on eBay, and I was like, and he started messaging me back and forth, and he's like, I've been looking for this forever. It's like I grew up with, I watched the motion picture. I wanted this battle cruiser.
Yeah.
And he's like, what else you got? So I started sending him pictures, and he's like, I want that. I want that. And I want that. And I was like, wait, well,
Yep.
I mean, well, they're mine, but I mean, and yeah, but I finally at that time I needed money, I needed money. And so I was like, oh, okay. And it was that struggle of, these are my personal collection. This is why I put a lot of work into this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, absolutely.
and I actually let it go. I talked my dad about it, and I was like, I'm just gonna do it. Right now I need the money. And my dad, he drove me down into Melbourne, Florida, and the guy handed me a check for $3,000.
Wow.
And so that was it was 2 battle cruisers, and he got the Battle Damage Enterprise, and then he just started pointing out other stuff. And like, I saw those other models you got, I want those too. And I'm like,
Yeah, there's people like that. They don't want to build things. They just want to find it, and if they find it, they're going to have it. So
they want to own it. They don't want to build it. They just want to own it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest with you though, a lot of it was kind of like a lesson to be learned. A lot of the things that really put me on the map came from other people.
Sure.
They hired me to do stuff, and because if it was up to me, I just wouldn't. I'll show it off, but it's like I want this, I want it. and I
Yeah.
had to break away from that. You
Yeah.
kind of
Mhm.
getting attached to your own work. And then when I started sharing my work, it just put me on the map. And I started thanking the guy. I was like, Ron, thank you, man, because like a lot of people are looking at this and they want it too, and my work is being exposed,
Yeah.
through people. So people are actually helping, and you're helping
Oh yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's yeah, that has Mike could tell you probably a very similar story, 'cause he
Yeah.
did
Mhm.
like a 2001 spacesuit reconstruct, full suit and everything like that with the helmet and everything, and from that he got like so much publicity from that, and yeah, that's a whole other story, but I'll say that for
Yeah.
Wonderfest, so, but that's great. It's great. Hello, hey, pal.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, my son's just talking. But wow, man. Yeah, that's yeah. Yeah. Your stuff just blows me away. Just sorry, my son's opening the garage.
Is there so you're built? I guess you're building for collectors, but
Yeah,
is
I'm
there?
searching for those big collectors. I'm really trying to find those real serious collectors. I need, you know what? I want those collectors that you find at like a Christie's auction, and they just throw their hands up. They keep throwing their hands up and sold.
So if you're doing a model for somebody, how how much are you charging? Like,
Um, well, the Refit Enterprise, the 3 foot model. My limit is I just kept it at 2,000. I've seen them go for 4 to 5,000 easy. I've seen
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
I was just asking 2,000, and then the battle cruisers I was doing them at just 1,000. And so I know I had some buddies of mine tell me like, dude, you can get more out of that. You deserve that, and it's kind of like this Corvette. This Corvette I only paid $11,000 for this car, and it got everything you need in a performance car. So
Mhm.
it's like the old man's Ferrari, a poor man's Ferrari. So you get a lot more for what you pay for. So, but it got
Mhm.
issues though.
When you're ready to modify it to the Frankenstein alligator from Death Race 2000, just tell us, and we'll help you out with that. We'll put the big spine on it, with the teeth in the front.
Yeah, right.
There you go.
But yeah, I was yeah. I never know, like as a builder, I like to just build, and if people want something, like my friends want something, I'll just build it for them. I won't charge them because it's
No,
one of those things. But
right.
if it's for the general public, it would be like, I don't know, and I don't be like, I don't know what to charge, and I had asked that of Steve Neal, and he said you need to charge $25,000. I'm like, you could charge $25,000 because you're Steve Neal. You worked on Laser Blast. You worked on Ghostbuster. He goes, no, 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 no. If you are seriously going to do this, you need to charge anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't see doing that. I just I mean, for me, well, for me, because I'm a pushover. My wife would go, "Oh, you need to do it, with it, $25,000 to $50,000." Well, yeah, that would be nice, but I'm not going to find those people,
Mhm.
who go to the Christie's auctions. I know, I may find them, but it's the whole thing that when I'm building something, the devil is in the details. It's in the painting, but it's also in the details. It's what you're
Right.
putting into it,
Yeah.
And if I'm making something out of cardboard, and that's like my new medium now. That's the cardboard with the resin. That's the under thing, and then actually, I found out that you can actually take styrene sheet and glue that to the cardboard once the resin is on there, because you're actually gluing it to resin. So you're actually making it like a lot lighter. You're making your superstructure lighter. You're having a skin of just styrene sheet, and then you can glue greeblies to the styrene sheet, kind of like
Right.
Star Wars, kind of like they
Mhm.
did in Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I was like, so I'm like, Okay, so I'm gonna figure it out. I'll try it. I'll try it, and hopefully it'll be good. And then maybe when Model Citizen comes back, September 6th, I'll be able to show something, or I'll just say, you know what, it was a big disaster, and I have to go the other way. So, so yeah, I mean, like making a model out of Perspex, like the original Battlestar Galactica, that's like, I mean, Perspex is extremely, extremely heavy
Yeah, and
for a
it's difficult
model.
to work with. At least I've when I used to mess with that stuff, it was like you keep it from cracking or whatever when you're trying to saw it or to cut it.
Right.
You got to use the right blade and all that stuff. But actually, I have a question for you, Ray. Do you do any? Because this is my thing now. Because I've kind of gone beyond like the real scratch building now. I kind of solve my own personal life. But do you get into like 3D design and printing, any of that stuff, or is it all still old school?
It's pretty much old school. I
Okay.
bought a 3D
Mhm.
printer and
Yeah.
I ended up selling it. So that was another thing. It was another situation where I needed money and I sold a
Yeah.
printer. And yeah, I didn't get it. I didn't get a 3D printer. I'll get 3D printed parts from people. I have a print guy
Hmm.
who make parts for me, and I'll use those parts to add
Yeah.
that to whatever I
Mhm.
build.
Yeah.
But I really would like to have a printer. Gosh, I need to get one.
Yeah. Well, we can
Yeah.
talk. We can talk at the show because
Okay.
that's my thing. So and scanning too. I also do 3D scanning of objects and so a lot of things. So, but I was thinking it's you're building a lot of this stuff from scratch, but even if you don't want to 3D print the whole thing or whatever, it can really come in handy for if you need like some kind of specialty part with a lot of detail in there. And if
Okay.
it's not out there, I can, or not me, but or it's not too difficult to actually design the thing on the computer, or to get the dimensions and stuff right. But anyway, I was just curious if you're into that or not. But we'll talk. Maybe I'll get you back into it. So,
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yes.
If you need
Yeah.
molding or you need something sculpted,
yeah,
you could ask me. Yes,
Oh, okay.
James. James can, I do sculpting.
Me too. I do
Yeah,
sculpting. I do
yeah,
clay
yeah,
sculpting.
yeah.
yeah,
No, I say I still do some sculpting too. Yeah, then I scan it, and then
yeah.
and then I get another 3D model and then print it out. So
Oh,
No, see
that's
me,
fun. I need to learn that too.
I
Yeah.
say I don't do the scanning part of it mainly because I don't have a scanner. Um, but no, the way I do it usually is through design software,
yeah, yeah,
and for me it works out great because I mean I could just do it. I don't know why it's
exactly,
just
exactly.
natural for me.
Yeah,
So, but yeah, that's my thing is I design it and then I just have it permanent and print it out.
That's part of the fun too.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, fun.
well, like you said, like you start off with drawings and plan drawings and all that stuff, and but that's just as important as just as much I would say fun as actually building the thing. Putting things together. Is that preparation and that getting those ideas that you have and acting on them. So it's terrific.
So, yeah, we're gonna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to change the. I am building a 24-inch in diameter Invaders UFO, so we can. I do have to change the outside of that. So, what does James have? What does he have? What's going on?
This is it's something I've been fooling around with. But it's just a little bit, this is just kind of like just like first part, but this is like from the computer,
Oh.
and,
Oh.
and so I got like a fairly large resin printer, but I didn't do it on that one, but yeah, but doing it like in sections, but you're doing it like 24-inch, so that's a bit more of a
Well,
challenge.
I found that where the cylinder is for the bridge that I'm
Yeah.
doing,
Yeah,
it's
Mhm.
based on the Atlantis UFO, and a lot of people on the forums are saying that's not what the actual miniature is. The actual miniature, like that cylindrical section where the bridge is actually larger.
Yeah, yeah,
and then
Yeah.
the skirt
Yeah.
is smaller.
Yeah,
So
that's because yeah, that's this. I mean, I think yeah, yeah. Well, we could talk after hours about the
yeah,
invader saucer. So,
yeah.
do you remember that
so,
show? That show, Ray? Did you ever see that show, The Invaders from the '60s?
My dad did.
Yeah,
So I know of it. I know
yeah,
of it.
okay,
But
yeah,
it's through my dad. My
yeah,
dad
yeah.
knows everything about it.
it yeah, and it's one of the holy grails that people have been trying to get to. That saucer. They've been
Yeah.
trying to make that saucer for eight. I've seen guys try to make it, and it just doesn't really look good, and all that stuff. So
My
we will.
dad's favorite saucer is a Jupiter 2.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
It's always his classic favorite saucer is a
Mhm.
Jupiter 2.
Okay.
I found out the other day. I didn't realize this because maybe I was kind of heard about it, but I didn't realize that for the pilot they actually used there was something they called it the Gemini 2 or
the Gemini 12.
Gemini 12.
and then
Mhm.
it somehow morphed into the Jupiter 2 and I was like and I look at things and I said isn't that the same model, isn't that the same, and then you look at it and you said no there's some differences there and
Yeah, it had a larger bridge, and then when they did the series,
yeah
they actually put I think like a larger bottom and
Yeah.
made was it and made the the second deck
yeah
Yeah.
like before
Mhm.
it goes to the power core,
right
yeah.
yeah
And I was like, oh, I didn't see that, but
Wait, where they put that chariot, I have no idea.
No wonder did they take it apart and had to put it together?
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. Like, what is that?
there's there's a technical manual on with it on the Jupiter 2, and it shows it from like it entered from the back. It was never taken apart. It was like all together, and there was this ramp that it went up and it went into the thing. I was like, okay, so wait a minute, because I remember in the one episode when Will and Dr. Smith go into the back of the Jupiter 2, and there's all these boxes. They're like stepping into like Home Depot, and it
Yeah.
was huge. And I was like, well, wait a minute. The Jupiter 2 is actually the TARDIS. It's
It must be.
but
It must be.
dimensionally transcendental. It's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. They open
Gotta
up the
be.
TARDIS. Huge thing. I was like, okay, well,
Yeah. Irwin Allen's world it has no basis in reality. Yeah.
And where did Space Pod? Where did little Space Pod go?
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
too. That's
Right,
like, hey, we
right?
gotta have
Space Pod was actually
yeah. I don't ask questions like that. I
was
ask questions like
No, you're asking too many questions. You're asking too many questions.
Space Pod was actually on the I'm gonna say it was on the port side of the ship.
the left side, yeah.
Yeah. But I think it was behind the cryotubes or in front of the cryotubes. But there was a door, and I just didn't understand. They had a sliding door for the Jupiter, but they had an opening like a swing out door for the space pod. I didn't understand that. I was like going, you had enough room to do the two doors closing like that in the space pod,
Yeah.
and you had this swing out door. I'm like, okay.
They were playing a Fiesta deck on one of them. That's why the sliding doors, man.
It was just I don't know. I mean, like a lot of things on that ship just didn't make sense. Like the power core was huge. Like the power core room was huge.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, okay. It's the TARDIS. It's
Yeah. It must be.
It has to be.
so,
But I think that was the cool thing about well, that was in the '60s, right? And the Star Trek was in the '60s.
Mm-hmm.
But I just didn't understand why they didn't get really detailed with Lost in Space, like Star Trek, like with Gene
Oh, yeah.
Roddenberry and all those guys.
It all
they
made
got really
sense.
detailed.
Yeah. It
with
all made sense.
scale.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think that's really. I mean, those Irwin Allen shows, they really weren't targeted at adults so much as kids. I mean, it was like George and I were probably the demographics for those shows, and so like back then, you just didn't think about spatial,
No, because I
dimensional
mean,
integrity or anything like that. It's
to
like, wow, look at
know,
that. That's really cool.
needless back. No, I mean, back then it was during those times where it was
Yeah,
just
yeah,
um with the Lost in Space. It was just danger, Will Robinson. It
yeah,
was just how do we get to a point where you just hear danger, Will Robinson? Like,
yeah,
how do you? What do we need to do to get to that point?
You know,
Because that's what the people want.
yeah, yeah. It's funny because I never thought about that until there was some comedian I like in the late '70s who started doing that shtick with the Danger Will Robinson.
Uh huh.
I was like, did he really say that? Did the robot really say that? And then they started showing him in reruns again. I said, I guess he really said that. But,
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, like,
Hmm.
but like when you're a kid, it's
yeah,
like you're not rationalizing. You're
no,
just saying, "Wow,
yeah,
No,
they
it's
had
like,
this
exactly.
wow,
really
that's cool.
Yeah,
like way to drive on the
Mhm.
planet, which was the
yeah,
chariot. They had the jetpack,
yeah,
and then
Jetpack.
when you see the
Hmm.
jetpack actually fly, like when you actually see the Bell, jump jet fly,
yeah,
it was only 60 seconds. You could only stay aloft for 60 seconds. But when you're a kid, you're
yeah,
like,
So
wow,
yeah,
well, they're flying for hours on that
yeah, yeah,
thing.
yeah,
And,
yeah, yeah.
it's,
It's like, yeah, I'm gonna get one of those when I'm
yeah,
an adult. I'm definitely gonna have one of those,
yeah,
So
I'm definitely going to have one of those when I grow up. And I'm like, yeah, nah,
it's
nah,
like
I guess
nah.
that's
you're not
I
going
guess it's kind of like the westerns though, where you will
yeah,
see them ride on the horse and you think they're just riding and they just
yeah,
keep going,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and the horse can only go but so far, and it's like you got to take a
yeah,
break.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's like Paladin gets from like San Francisco down to like Arizona, like in a day or two, So yeah,
to.
And the thing
Or
is, like,
kung fu.
they ride
yeah,
off
right,
into the
right,
sun.
right,
They
right.
ride
yeah,
off into the sunset. But it's like,
Yeah.
what if the next place they're going to is like maybe like 300 feet away? Riding off into the sunset. But it's like they're just going right over here.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've
Uh,
seen that on on Lost in Space in some of the scenes when they're walking, you could see their shadow against the background, and I'm
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah, yeah. It's like, well,
It's
that's
like,
where they're gonna stop. So
that's where
it's
they're
like
gonna stop.
right.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
anyways, I guess it's
Uh,
3 o'clock. So
it is
so-
3 o'clock. I'm very sorry. It was Babylon George again. I didn't give Ray enough time to talk, but we will have you on again, sir, if you want to come back.
Oh,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
you can join it. Maybe if you're around, because we're gonna do like a Wonderfest special next week. So
Yeah, we're gonna do
okay,
Wonderfest special next week.
yeah, so
Um,
awesome.
if you want to be around next week, you are more than welcome to come on. We do have guests. We have Mark Myers and we have Chris Hunter,
Oh,
son of
Mark
Jeffrey
Myers.
Hunter. That's for our season finale. If you want to be on, you are more than welcome,
yeah,
sir. Anytime you want to
we
come
might have
on,
Might have Mike Scott on too. Yeah,
we might have
Yeah.
Mike
Tony,
Scott on.
Tony.
We can have
Yeah,
a whole,
yeah, yeah.
we have like a whole
And
round table of people.
Nobody would ever get a word in edgewise, but we'll.
and judging by your shirt, I can only assume that you're a little bit of a sci-fi fan. So, I a friend of mine, we host a podcast that's called Rules of Nerdquisition, and you are more than welcome to come on because we talk about Star Trek, we talk about Star Wars, we talk about just
Oh,
any kind of every nerdy thing possible.
okay.
Ninja Turtles, Babylon 5,
Oh man.
a little bit of everything. So, yeah, you're more than welcome anytime to come on. Matter of fact, I will, once we end the show here, let me, get some contact information from you. And so then
Okay.
that way I can contact with you and get that set up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Cool. Yep. Okay. So this has been Model Citizen on GCPR, Ghost Claw Productions Radio. I'm your host, George Thayer. I want to thank Mr. Ray Vaughn or Gurnell. Who's Gurnell? Is that
But the name is almost like it's long. It's like Indiana Jones Jr.
Oh,
It's
okay. Okay.
It's Gurnell Reynard Vaughn Jr. But
Got it.
I just
Ray.
took Ray out of Reynard
Okay.
There you
So
go.
just go with Ray.
Okay.
Just going
Go
with Ray. All
You
right.
call me Ray.
It was. It reminds me of you know, you know, of the Fifth Element. Like going, do you have a name? Lilu. Blah, 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 blah. He goes, you know, he goes, oh, he goes, oh, good. That whole thing is your name. Okay, so that's, you know, that's fine. All right, yeah, okay. Yeah, but shorter name.
Yeah.
Like short, yeah. Okay, so this has been sorry, this has been Model Citizen. I'm your host, George Dayer. My wonderful host, the angry IT nerd. I know why he's angry. He hates Apple, and
A little bit.
just a little bit. And James Lechner, Printmaster James, and our special guest, Ray Vaughn. I was going to say
Vaughn.
Gurnell. I was going to say just Ray Vaughn. Not Stevie Ray
Thank
Vaughan.
you.
Ray Vaughn. You are more than welcome to come back, sir, anytime you want. We'll also get your contact information for the Rules of Nerdquisition. And you can be on their show, and hopefully I'll be on, and, you know, as a special guest, and I won't be babbling for like 19 minutes or was it 20
No,
minutes?
you have
It's
to.
not you, it's me.
So you have to fight. You have to fight.
Stuff.
You'll have to fight the babble. You have to fight your way into the conversation so you can babble.
Yeah, it won't be Babylon 5. It'll probably be, it'd be Babylon George. So thank you very much, everyone in the chat, if anybody was in the chat. And our season finale show is next week. So stay tuned for
Awesome.
that. And we will see you when we see you.